Today I'm going to talk to you about the very common situations all over the world today and throughout the whole history of human beings, really, and that is crisis situations and how to deal with them, how to handle them, how to come out of crisis situations as unscathed as possible. Now, I have worked with, crisis situations actually my entire life. That is my entire adult life, the last 40 years of my life. And I'm talking about serious crisis situations of child abuse, all the way through to war traumas, all the way through to just social mania and hysteria and false information being thrown at people left, right, and center, confusing the hell out of them. So I do know what I'm talking about. I do get a very good understanding from my life's work. Yeah. And this enables also for me to live with and work within those crisis situations myself and keep myself in a very healthy state whilst doing this. It's very, very important for me to be able to do that. And so how do I do this? And how can you do this? The first thing, as I was saying, is that the atmosphere around you in your immediate society, in any crisis situation, the actual feel of the world around you at the time this is happening is going to have an effect on you, and it's supposed to. It's supposed to have the effect on you that it does, because this is how you, as a living organism, are primarily and initially alerted to there being an actual problem in your environment and in your atmosphere, in your society around you. Now, the problem with this is that our friends and our neighbors are also highly reactionary, emotional people. And when they're in reaction and emotional distress with the actual facts of the situation of the crisis, then they add their own unresolved pain, their own emotional fears, and their own traumas to the mix of that feeling. So you get quite a massive hysteria going on when people are in crisis situations, because it's triggering everybody's own unique trauma who happens to be in that crisis situation with you, and it just becomes extremely distressful to be in that atmosphere. So you've got to understand that how it's affecting the people around you is not necessarily the actual effect of the crisis situation today on its own, but it's also the effect of what it is triggering inside of those people from what they have not been able to receive throughout the history of their own life now, or their own life in the past. So you've got a lot in the mix there. So it's very, very important to bring it back to, both for yourself and for everyone around you in the long run, how to bring it back to just what the crisis is stirring up, nothing more. What is this crisis stirring up inside of me? So let's say I've just got off the internet, just finished listening to some truth warrior that's exposed a whole lot of ideas to me, or a whole lot of truths perhaps to me about my government or about my society or about whatever it's about that I never knew. And it's very distressing. It means my world of security, what I believed in, what I thought was true, what I thought was good, what I thought was supporting my life, is actually the opposite. And a lot of us are finding this out today. The first thing it's going to do is make you feel very insecure. But that security that you're feeling insecure from, or that security that is dissolving within you, is because your security has been based on your blind faith in people, in societies, in leaders, in religions. You've got to grow up. You've got a lot being challenged here. Your society is not something you can rely on. Your leaders around you are not something you can rely on. Your government is not something you can rely on. You are something you can rely on. But if you are letting yourself down by not actually getting to the truth yourself, then you're being lazy, you're being stupid. That's not a criticism, but you are being stupid because you're believing in shit that isn't real. How do you get to that situation and then you complain when you find out that that shit isn't real? And you're upset about that? Well, you had it coming. You've been taught to live in that level of ignorance through either religious conditioning, social conditioning, patriotic conditioning, all that nonsense that goes on in the world to turn people away from themselves, from being self-sufficient and strong in themselves, and from what they actually know for and from themselves, and turn them to, people outside of them, to trust them, to believe them. And I know we've all been conditioned since we've been children, all the way through our lives, to listen to religious people, the education system, the medical system. I know that. It's a big wake-up call for any individual when they actually find out the thing they really blindly believed in is a lot of bullshit. Okay, so what are you going to do? You go into a crisis reaction. You hear it for the first time from the so-called, the truth speaker, the truth warrior on the internet. Fine. Receive that information, but be very aware of the emotionalism behind these people. The emotionalism is their own pain. If you pick up on that, if you get fired up by that, it's going to throw you into a reaction that isn't your own reaction. It's going to throw you into a reaction that has been stimulated from their own personal reactions. You need to know how you really feel about what you learn. And even though what you learn can be disturbing and rock your world, let it rock your world and deal with that rocking. What it's rocking in you is only rocking your own tendency to be lazy enough and stupid enough to simply go along with what you've been told, without actually knowing it for yourself. So it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up to things that you've been believing and realize that you don't need beliefs. You need to know what it is you can know for and from yourself, and what you don't know for and from your own self, you really don't know. You're only believing it. So you've only got the choice to believe something outside of yourself, this is because you don't have the capacity yourself to understand it. So you either choose to believe it or disbelieve it. But why do any of that? Just realize you don't understand and accept that fact. I don't understand this. That's okay. You don't have to understand everything. What you do understand is how it's affecting you. Why do I say you understand that? Because that is within the realms of your own knowing. This is what you know for and from yourself. And knowing this for and from yourself is so because you feel it. You feel your own reactions. You feel your own distresses. But what you've got to be very, very careful of is how much you are creating those reactions by your complaint or reaction to how you think about what you've learnt, or what you're discussing with other people, or the repetition of looking at the internet and getting caught up in all the drama when people are in crisis. The drama meaning the constant regurgitation of look how bad it is, look at what's happening. A crisis is a crisis, and it's always something that you feel is unfair, is wrong. And of course it's unfair and wrong. That's why it's a crisis. It's very challenging. But the next step is, well, how do you deal with it? You've got to deal with it. Not to get caught up in all the drama, but respond to the demands of your environment. To respond as best you can, however you can. So the first thing is you need to be able to respond to the influences that you're receiving from the society around you, which is on a vibrationary level. What I mean by a vibrationary level, the feeling of the atmosphere when you go out into a world in crisis, when you go out into a community in crisis, the feeling of the atmosphere. That you can feel that going on. There's fear, there's horror, there's terror, and so on. So you need to be able to deal with that. And I'm going to talk to you about that. The next thing is not just dealing with that atmosphere, but dealing with the way in which you are then extra affected, the extra effects of talking to these people, talking to your community about how bad shit is. This is not helpful either. This is just dramatizing. And you'll find that when you do that, this will weaken you. Weaken your ability to deal with your own natural ability to deal with crisis. So getting involved in complaining about what has already happened is not helpful. It's already happened. This is just a complaint about the facts of life. Facts of life that cannot be changed. You can complain about them just because you've heard about them, or only just learnt about them, or you're in that situation. But complaint is weakening you. You need to face those facts. Okay, this is the fact. And what do I do with that fact? Well, that fact is very disturbing. Now, how do I deal with that disturbance of the fact? The disturbance of the fact is only firstly known when you stop complaining about the facts. And that complaint is coming out of your attempt to get away from how the facts have disturbed you. Stop complaining about those facts and come back to how those facts are making you feel. Those crisis facts are making you feel. That change in your world is making you feel personally in yourself. It's going to be two lots of feelings in there. One is going to be your own tendency to panic, or your own personal tendencies, meaning how is it that you normally deal with day-to-day difficulties and distresses, and how you deal with day-to-day difficulties and distresses will depend a lot on what you've left unresolved inside of yourself throughout the events of your own life. And if you've been a heavily traumatized person, then you've got something there that's going to be triggered. This feeling of great terror, the feeling of great concern that is greater than a person who hasn't been traumatized. So you're going to have stronger feelings. The other person who hasn't had any particular trauma in their life, they're going to be more equipped, more able to deal with the facts, to face the facts, simply because what's being triggered inside of them is not so overwhelming. So when you feel really overwhelming, you go into a massive reaction to the facts that have triggered that overwhelmment. Be very, very careful of this and notice the difference between what has come from your own past and what is actually being triggered by the crisis right now. How can you tell the difference? Because one is very familiar to you. One is very familiar to you. Yeah, you'll say, I've been through this before. I've had this feeling before. This is familiar to you. This is your own personal past intruding on the difficulties that you're dealing with today. So feel that in your body, knowing that this is not about the situation today. As much as possible, remind yourself that there is a difference between the disturbance of today and the facts of today and my disturbances from my own past. And my disturbances from my own past will be a very familiar feeling, whereas the disturbances I have about the crisis situation today, as in my immediate physical response to that, that will be something which is alerting you to action. That is not freezing you like trauma. That is not inhibiting you like trauma. That is making you act. It's giving you the feeling and the energy to do what you need to do. So you have a reaction, sure, but that reaction is a response to the crisis of today. And that is only going to be affected badly, or weakened, I should say, by getting caught in the confusion of whatever past personal distresses you haven't resolved up to date. So seeing that is one thing. But if that's too complicated, you're just dealing with what the crisis is stirring up in you, whether it's past, your own past, or it's just the pure panic of what you're having in reaction to the crisis now. That panic is very, very important to resolve. Very important to resolve daily, especially whilst the crisis situation is going on. You're going to feel that panic being there the whole time. You need to be able to live with that. You have to be able to live with that. How do you live with hysteria? How do you live with the panic inside of you? The hysteria is coming from outside of you, from the people around you. The panic, the distress inside of you is what's coming up in you personally. Be with that. How? You've got to feel that as the sensation that it is in your body. How it feels in your body is the feeling being resolved along the way. As long as the crisis is there, so you are going to be feeling a little more high alert going on inside of you. You're going to be a little more distressed, but you can deal with that distress by feeling it. You have to feel the distress. That feeling of distress is how your system, your body knows that there is a problem around me. But the next thing is how to discriminate between what is the real problem and what is the exaggeration on top of that problem that the community and the hysteria of that community is adding to the fire. Yeah, the fuel they're adding to the fire of the awful environment you find yourself living in. And that is something, do your best to ignore all that shit. Yeah, do your best to ignore that. Now, how? Because you come back to, well, what are the facts that I know? Yeah, and this is what I have to deal with today. And the same the next day, and the same the next day. So the crisis situation stirs your own pain and stirs a response to what's going on around you. But when you For example, you go out into your community, their conversation is all about the current crisis. So they're going on about it all the time, repeating themselves how many times? Every time they come into a conversation with you, they are going to repeat themselves. They're going over and over and over and over. Now, why do people do this? Because they can't stand how it's making them feel, how the reality of the crisis is making them feel. They can't stand that feeling, so they're driven from that feeling to constantly talk about what it is they're disturbed over. But that talking is not addressing the issue. That is inhibiting their ability to address the issue. And the issue is they don't like how they're feeling. Yeah. Now, this is okay, but it's not helpful. This is a real life situation. You need to be with how you're feeling. So you've gone out in a community and people are talking to you all day long about these things. You've got to avoid engaging in those conversations. You can be there, but to constantly engage in conversations, to constantly engage in the internet, to keep up with the world, with the news about your situation, for factual reasons only, this is okay. But if you're constantly looking at it because you're feeding your disturbance with this shit, this is not helping you. You don't need to be doing that. You already know what's going on. And whatever's going to change in the environment, in the crisis situation, you'll know it eventually. But right now, you have to deal with how it's affecting you. So what's weakened the frequency in your body is firstly that you yourself have mental reactions in yourself to the situation around you. So you're weakening the frequency in your body. You're weakening your own energy system from the inside out by the way you're thinking. So if you come back to that feeling behind that reactionary thought, exit the reactionary thought by coming back to your body and how it feels in there, and just feeling that is going to contain that. You feeling that distress brings it into containment within you, not suppression, but containment. You're still feeling it, and you're learning to live with that distress. As you live with that distress, it will dissipate, and you'll get better at living with that distress. And as you contain that distress, already your whole body starts to develop its strength again. It will realign with the distress it has within it. The body doesn't actually mind having distress inside of it. It's just your thought processes, your fear of distress, your own reactions to it, your thinking that doesn't like it. But the body's okay with that. The body is equipped to be distressed, actually. That's why you feel distress. That's how it's equipped to be distressed. What happens when the body is in a distressful environment? It resonates with that distressful environment. It copies that distress in the atmosphere, and it resonates and vibrates at that same frequency, simply because that's how we know what's going on around us. This is a natural contact that we have from the inside with the world outside. This is normal. This is natural. So you feel that frequency, you feel that vibration, you feel the feeling of you being affected by the feeling of other people and by the atmosphere of the crisis. You feel that, and you're part of that. Be part of that. Don't try and not be part of that. Just be part of that, but don't go into mental reaction to it. This is immediately going to weaken you. This is going to crash you. This is going to make it impossible for you to go through this situation and come out unscathed. You'll come out with more trauma than you've ever had before, simply because of what you were doing to yourself, in the way you were thinking about yourself and the environment and the feelings that were going on inside of you throughout that event. You've got to live with these feelings. So this is a crisis. Now, what's going to help you with this is understanding that the meditation of the body, the natural meditation of the body, is something that you can do in the morning before you set out to the world, before you go out into the world. And that is to feel exactly how you feel in your own body. And you need to sit there for a long time, not just how should I say, not trying to change anything, but getting in touch with how it already is inside of you. Getting in touch with how it already is inside of you, and just feeling that, really feeling your own physical presence. Drop beneath all your thinking by coming back to the feeling of you. Meditation has nothing to do with thinking. That's just traditional meditation, and that's nonsense. It won't help you at all. Yeah, what you need is to come back to the feeling of you beneath all that nonsense of trying to change what you think and change your state when your state is already resonating in response to a crisis environment. You've got to feel that. You've got to be able to live with that, not detach from that, not suppress that, but live with that. Learn to live with that. So you start your day by being in the feeling of however you happen to be feeling today, and feeling that, you'll gradually become quieter with that. If you really are feeling that, you'll gradually quieten down into the feeling of that. You have to accept that as a fact. It's not a fact you like. It's not about whether you like something or dislike something. It's what is the something that's there? What is the condition that's there? You accept it simply because it's a fact. You don't reject it because you dislike it. You don't accept it because you like it. You accept it because there is nothing else to do. There's nothing else you can do. You accept the disturbance even though you don't like it. And you feel that. Allow yourself to feel that, knowing that your body can deal with that if you just stop thinking about it, stop complaining about it, and let your body take care of the distress. And being with that in the morning will strengthen your own frequency, actually. Your acceptance of that distress inside of you will make it more able for you to go out into your community, out into that heightened distress atmosphere, and be able to be with that. Being with that means not complaining about that, but being in yourself however you happen to be. If you are a more advanced person with this, then you get up in the morning and you sit to meditate, whatever the situation is around you, and you just are able to become very quiet and very still within your own body. That means feel the sensations of your own body. Just get attuned to that. Not thinking about the situation, not thinking about the environment, meaning that when you start to think about that environment, when you start to think about the crisis, the reason you're thinking about it is because you're getting away from the distress of the environment already within you, and you're getting away from that into thinking about it. Understand that that's why you're thinking. You are thinking because you are getting away from the distress that is driving that thinking. Now, as it's distress that it's driving that thinking, more thinking is not going to affect that thinking or change that thinking or resolve that overthinking. So what is going to resolve that overthinking is getting back in touch with the energy of the driving force, the distress in you that is driving you to be thinking about the crisis. So feel that as it is. And feeling that is you attuning to that in the body of you, where you can contain it, and discover for yourself that the body can actually take care of that for itself. And as you hold the stress within you, as you feel that within you, you're containing it already just by feeling it inside of you. And by feeling it inside of you, this will gradually dissipate. This will gradually calm down to a point where you're actually quite quiet with whatever the feeling happens to be, mentally quiet. And this is because by feeling that distress, you are no longer indulging in the thought processes that are driven from that distress. Of course, when your thought processes are driven from that distress, you find yourself out of that more distressful thinking, only adding more fuel to the fire of your distress because of the way you're in reaction to it. So that's not helpful. So I'm talking about what's going to help you in a crisis situation. And that is whether the crisis is personal and within your own distresses of your own world internally, or whether it is your environment of your world out there and your community today. This distress is all to be dealt with in exactly the same way. You need to be able to contain it within yourself, meaning discover how it exists within you as a feeling in you. And how your thinking about it is not helpful. It's not doing anything. It's just charging that distress up more. And that thinking is essentially coming out of that distress that you're feeling. So if you can feel that distress as a feeling inside of you to the point that it dissipates, and calms down, then you don't have so much disturbance to drive that thinking. And this is how your thinking itself will calm down, because you're no longer avoiding your own distress in an attempt to think your way out of your distress, which is only making you more distressed by thinking about what it is you're distressed about. Come back to the distress itself, how it's affecting you, how your environment's affecting you, and just feel it there as much as you can. You find yourself going back into the thinking again, come back to the distress again, understanding for yourself that this distress is what's driving my thinking, and the only thing that's going to settle my thinking down is to feel the distress that's driving it, so that distress can begin to dissipate within the process of me just feeling it. So you need to be very, very aware of this. The next thing is that when you go out into your community, you have your meditation from the morning or from before you've left to go outside, where you've actually got in touch with yourself as you are, including any distress that you may have lingering there from just from being in a crisis environment, but you're in touch with it. And because you're in touch with it, you go out into the world where of your social community, already in touch with what's going on, already containing it within yourself, then you don't get shocked with what they come at you with. You already know what's going on. You're more able to see how theirs is an overreaction, an over mentalization, too much reactionary thinking, too much talking about the crisis, rather than containing the effects of the crisis as they exist as feelings within them. Now, how can you be of help? Well, how you can be of help is because you yourself have a more of a solid, grounded sense of yourself in the body. An acceptance of the crisis, an acceptance of the way it makes you feel, means you can be grounded in the reality of the situation you're in, and then you can actually be there as a solid anchor for anybody around you. So now the reverse can begin to happen, that your calm, that your acceptance of what's going on inside of you and in the world you're in right now is going to enable you to not have to be involved in complaining and talking about and freaking out about what's going on in the community. When you come into contact with your community, when they want to talk about it, you can listen to them, but you're listening to them not to get drawn into what they're talking about and start talking about that yourself. That's not going to help them. That's only going to add fuel to their fire and make things worse for them. You want to help them. The only thing you can do is not indulge in that and come back to being calm in yourself. Being calm, not because you're introducing calm, but because you're no longer reacting to the lack of calm that is already in your system by being in a crisis situation. So your friends and your community seeing that, yes, you're in there with them, but you're not reacting to them. This helps them calm down in your presence. So you don't have to get involved in trying to make them feel better. Not at all. Talking to them what they're upset about is not necessary. You just need to not get involved in the complaints that they are drawing you into. Don't get drawn into those. Just say, okay, these are the facts. These are the facts. This is our situation. We need to be with this as it is. And just being with them, your own atmosphere is enough. Don't look to see if it's changing them. Don't worry about the results. Just know that your own atmosphere of just accepting the crisis situation, being in a crisis situation, and being with how it's making you feel, and simply responding to the demands of that crisis situation, because there is nothing else you can do. Just respond. No longer reacting, no longer complaining. We've got past that now. The crisis has happened. Complaining about it is a waste of time. It's just childish. You need to move on from that and be there for yourself. Being there for yourself means to be there in the feeling of how it's making you feel, and just respond to the facts of the situation. Do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. Do what needs to be done in the situation to make it livable as possible. Not looking to what other people are doing, not complaining if other people aren't doing enough, but do what you need to do. And the first thing you need to do is embrace your own feelings, is bring it back to the body of you. Get out of all that mentalization and complaint, bring it back to the body of you. And then you go into your life, not expecting yourself to remain calm, but continually coming back to the disturbance that other people are aggravating in you out of their hysteria. So there's two things going on here. Because you're with yourself as you are, your own frequency is now quite strong. It's much stronger than it is when you're panicking and when you're manic. This is not strong. What makes you strong is being yourself, just yourself, with yourself. Being an anchor to yourself, in the feelings of you when you go out into the world. And whatever is coming at you is going to affect you. But don't react to it. If you are if you've managed to get past reacting to the disturbance that you're already feeling, then when more of the same disturbance comes at you from people around you, you're already prepared for that disturbance. So expect it to be disturbing. Don't expect it to be nice. Expect people to be problematic. Don't expect them to be sane. Expect distress from people and be with that. So the main reason you are susceptible to influence from liars or truth speakers, doesn't matter. The main reason you're susceptible to influence from that, the main reason your body is susceptible to the influence of the toxins and the poisons in our food and our world, the main reason your body is susceptible to the harmful frequencies of our technology, this susceptibility, and the main reason for it, which is caused by the most harmful thing that way outstrips all of these. And that is your own reactionary thinking. The way you are thinking is the most dangerous thing. If you are in reaction, if you're in complaint, you're avoiding your pain, you're avoiding your feelings. If you're in complaint, you are creating hysteria. What you're speaking and what you're thinking, if it's reactionary, it's an avoidance of the fact. When you come back to the facts, there's nothing to react to. You have the facts, and the facts demand action. You know what to do when you have the facts. You're in a crisis, you respond. If you're reacting to the crisis, you're reacting because you don't want to act. You just want to complain, but you need to act. And that's what we're often frightened of. We're frightened of becoming involved in the situation in the way that it's necessary. But becoming involved in the way that it's necessary is governed by the facts in front of us and our ability to respond to those facts. And then becoming involved in that gives us further stability. We are now aligning with our world of facts, of the current facts of this moment. And we are just dealing with that, moment by moment, dealing with that, getting through each day of any crisis, moment by moment, whether it's your own healing process or whether it's a massive disturbance going on in the world outside your front door. It's really coming back to how are you dealing with how that makes you feel on the inside. If you can deal with that by feeling it, knowing I have to feel this now, if you can deal with that, then you will deal with what's outside of you way, way better. And don't put any expectations on yourself on how you should deal with that, but expect fluctuations. So this will strengthen your own energy of your own body. When you stop the reactionary thinking, this will give you greater immunity to toxins, to poisons, to toxins already within yourself, to conditions already within yourself. It will give you greater immunity to that. It'll give you greater immunity to the atmosphere around you that is created by the people in their states that they're in, the vibration of the molecules of the world. It will give you greater immunity to the harmful atmosphere that's caused by technology, and so on. Whatever harm is coming at you, your primary form of defense for that is that you yourself are not in reaction. If you are not in your reactionary state of thinking, you are solid, you are strong. Yeah. So reactionary thinking is the most toxic thing. That weakens your energy system. It throws you out of harmony within yourself, from within yourself. And that breaks your defenses to the world around you. From the inside, it breaks your defenses, your immune system and so on, your nervous system, your endocrine system. All of this gets affected when you go into reactionary thinking. Because reactionary thinking is essentially the worst problem that we have as a human being, because it is our attempt to escape reality. When we're complaining about our reality, we're not wanting it to be the way it is. We're not facing the way it is. We're not noticing and recognizing and acknowledging the facts as they are. We're saying how we want them to be. We're complaining about how they are and saying how they should be. What has that got to do with the facts? So that reactionary thinking is a disassociation from reality. It's actually a separation within us between reality and the stories we get caught up in. The reality, we'll find it always when we come back to the physical sensations of the body of us. There's our reality. The physical facts in the world around us. There's our reality. That is our grounding, and that's very, very important. So the reactionary thinking is not going to make you strong. It's going to weaken you. So be very careful who you're listening to. Listen to whoever you want to listen to, but be very careful of where they're coming from. If they're really upsetting you, if it's not just the information, but they're really, really upsetting you with their negativity, with their reaction, it's coming out of their pain. They're not dealing with the facts that they're expressing. They're just complaining about them. That's understandable, but it's not helpful in a crisis situation. That's when we've really got to grow up really, really fast. Get up in the morning, notice how you feel, be with that feeling, take that out into society, take that out into your community throughout the day, and do what you've got to do each day. Respond to the demands of your life, staying anchored in the body of you. How does it feel to be me right now? Not why do I feel this way? That's not important. But how does it feel to be me right now? And there you have your anchor. Getting back in touch with how it feels to be you is nothing more than the physical sensations of your own body, knowing that that is all you really know. Outside of you, you need thinking for that. Okay. I hope that helps you guys out there struggling in these crisis situations. You hopefully, if you're in a situation where you can still get to technology, then you can download my app, undoapp.com, and this will help you a lot in dealing with all the things that go on inside of you that make it very, very difficult for you to deal with what goes on outside of you, so that you can strengthen from within your abilities and renew your abilities, or discover for the first time your natural abilities, reawaken your natural intelligence and your body's natural abilities to deal with whatever is happening out there in your world. And this starts with, at the same time, learning to deal with what's happening in here, in the world of you. Okay, so if you like this information, you can subscribe, hit the subscribe button, or you can download my app. And the reason I'd like you to do that is so that you have something you can use on a daily basis all the way through this crisis. And a crisis is an opportunity to go deeper into your own personal understanding of yourself, into your own development in response to a heightened demand. But you may need some guidance to navigate that the best way possible, the most harmless way possible. And that's what the Undo app is for. okay. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me today. If this talk resonated with you or helped you in any way at all, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the talk with your friends so that they can get the benefit as well. Okay, bye for now.